Howdy, howdy, lads, MBs, and lasses. If you live in the Harris Branch neighborhood in Austin, Texas, my name's Anthony, and I'm your neighbor. This is another video recap of the monthly HOA meeting for our residential HOA. As always, we're going to run through the meeting agenda. The meeting is held every third Thursday of the month and is sent out to everyone via Town Square. You should be receiving emails letting you know when these occur. You are always welcome to join via Zoom, which makes it much more convenient than having to show up in person. These meetings occur at 6:30 p.m. Many times they go much later than the 8 p.m., but if you don't have the time, feel free to click that subscribe button, and that way you'll get an update every time I post a recap video so you can stay up to date with what's going on in the neighborhood. Number one, the call meeting to order. All 5 of the HOA board members were there, so they did have a quorum. Number 2, homeowner forum. As discussed previously, this is when homeowners can discuss anything that they'd like the HOA to address or cover. Many times they'll ask you to give them time before they can come back, maybe in a later meeting or offline, in the sense that they'll shoot you an email and discuss the matter with you directly as opposed to in an open forum. Number 3, approve prior July meeting minutes. This happens every meeting. There is a recap in written form that is posted to Town Square that you can review at any time. It's posted there under documents. And this is written down by the secretary each monthly meeting. These things are a little bit more in detail than the meeting agenda. So I'm going to pop over to that real quick because there's one thing I did want to highlight, just in case it was an item of interest to any homeowners who happen to do short-term rentals. So as you can see here, these meeting minutes come out after each meeting, normally a couple weeks after the monthly meeting, always before next month's meeting. And you can see as I scroll down here, it's a little bit more in-depth than the agenda. You can see the community manager, the advisory board members, the members of the board, as well as the positions they hold. You should also be able to see how members of the board are voting. Always make sure that our meeting minutes include how our board members are voting. I think that transparency is crucial to ensuring trust with the homeowners in our neighborhood. As you can see, there's the treasurer's report with much more in-depth detail on the dollar amounts. This can be expanded even further, again, on Town Square. If you use the budget link and download the budget, you can see how all this breaks down. But there's one item here in particular that I wanted everybody to take a look at, because this might impact you. If you look under number 7 here, committee reports, number 4, Airbnb, VRBO, and short-term rentals violate the deed restrictions. This is an area that may require amplified information for homeowners and neighborhood representatives. There may be more short-term rentals than expected, since violations for this only result if complaints are made for issues such as noise, parking, etc. Given the opinions offered, this clearly may be an area that requires a legal understanding of short-term rental vendors, City of Austin regulations, etc. Community manager will work with legal and Goodwin on this issue. So keep that in mind. If you're an individual who owns a home in this neighborhood and you have a source of income that is dependent on short-term rentals, this may impact you. So you want to keep a close eye on how the board goes with this, because potentially what could happen is that they go after homeowners who are doing short-term rentals and kick short-term renters out of the neighborhood. Now, I know most of us are not all millionaires, in that many of us rely on extra streams of revenue to pay our mortgages and pay our HOA dues and simply afford to stay in this neighborhood. So it's always a good idea to keep an eye on how the HOA is going about handling this, and maybe instead of going after homeowners, working with homeowners to address these complaints. Something that if I was on the board, I certainly would do. Coming back to the meeting agenda here, we'll skip on down to number 6. The community manager report is Raquel. She is our community manager. We have hired her on a monthly salary to be the point of contact for our neighborhood. She went over some issues with the gym, some equipment in there that needs to be replaced or repaired. The air filters in the gym have been replaced. Unfortunately, it looks like that the screens on the tennis courts have been broken again from the high winds or maybe vandalism we're unsure. Moving to number 7, committee reports. A, neighborhood representatives. This is led by Gary Belcher. These, again, are people who give feedback to Gary on things that are happening in the neighborhood. You're always welcome to become one of them. If you have any interest in doing so, leave a comment below or send an email to Raquel. If you don't get a response from her, go ahead and leave a comment below and I can see what I can do. In the committee reports, Gary mentioned that people are worried about the lake levels. It is a bizarre concern considering most of us who are paying attention understand that we were in historic heat and drought and did not have rain to refill those. But the main culprit in that situation actually was not so much that the drought was drying out the lakes. It was a contributor. However, there is a pump that the HOA, the master HOA rather, runs that pumps from the aquifer below us. I believe we're on the Walnut Creek watershed, so it's coming from there. And that pumps water up into those lakes to fill them. Now, that pump has been failed for quite some time. Unfortunately, like many things, the part that is required to repair it has been on backlog. And so at this point, the HOA is mainly just waiting on that part to come in so that way that pump can be repaired and those lake levels, pond levels, can be restored. Additionally, Gary mentioned that there was concerns over following the process to request an amenity center card. I have created a video with a walkthrough on how to do that. It will be at the end of this video. Simply click that and it'll give you the entire steps on how to request a card. You can have it mailed to you or you can pick it up from Goodwin. If you have any issues following that video, comment on that video and let me know the error that you received so that way I can look into it and help resolve that so that way other homeowners as well as yourself can get that card requested. B, the fence committee with Martin Pazzi, nothing going on there. Nothing's going to be happening with that until the next fiscal year. C, the architectural change committee. Unfortunately, the board had fired 2 sitting members on the ACC. It seems as if it was in a retaliatory response to them approving a rain barrel in a front yard. Keep in mind, one of these members had been serving on the ACC for many years, and the other had even served on the board and went on to just serve on the ACC. The president had mentioned that he never received a response back after letting those 2 members know that they'd been removed. Of course, what should one expect when you abruptly relieve someone of their duties after so long, only because they were pro-water conservation? Additionally, there were 4 new members trained and ready to vote. They're all in position now and voting on submissions that you give to the ACC. I believe there was 5 pending. The VP, David Alley, is still advising them on what can and can't be approved. D, the amenity center expansion. This is another report from Mike McLaughlin, the president. As mentioned in previous videos, we're still in that process of fighting between the contractor, trying to use the designer that we hired to help us as an arbiter. And at this point, the board has sent a punch list to our attorney, Connie Heyer. Unfortunately, she deemed it that the punch list was not adequate enough for her, so she's requesting the board do additional work to then have her send the letter of termination to the contractor. If the contractor doesn't address those punch lists, then we can move on. I believe the board is working with Goodwin, who's supposed to suggest new contractors for the rest of the stuff that we are requiring that the previous contractor do. Currently, Mike stated that the bike rack, that was a little bit of a gray area in regards to approval with city code, is sitting in the garage area and ready for install. Unfortunately, I haven't been given any pictures of the bike rack. There's no mention of if it is a adequate one that doesn't bend and break spokes like the current one at the mini center. Unfortunately, as well, there's no mention that it's covered, something that is crucial for a useful bike rack. Good news that came out of the amenity center update is that the auditor went through the contractor charging and noticed that we'd been double charged. And once that double charge was almost corrected, it was noted that we had been triple charged. So, good news for us in the community. we should be getting back a $24,000 credit due to this overcharging by our contractor. Moving on to E, communications with Raquel. There's not much going on there. Vanessa and Raquel have been trying to coordinate a meeting for the last couple of months. I believe I've reported on this in order to set up their version of a social platform or website for folks interested in moving to Harris Branch in the many neighborhoods here, as well as a website that services the homeowners. As mentioned before, this is going to most likely be a version of Town Square, so if you're not on it, I highly recommend you get on it now. Moving on to F, Arts and Crafts with Sharon Campbell. She was a previous board member. She used to do the Yard of the Month. As stated here, Saturday, October 29th, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. will be that Arts and Crafts show. That will be at the Amenity Center. Bring any of the skills or talents that you have, and please, please, please share it with the neighborhood. It's always great to see our neighbors out in the community, as well as sharing their talents, so that way we have someone to go to anytime we have a situation that we need help with. 8, Old Business. Lights for Meadowview and Lakeview North and South. That has been completed, so that's going to fall off here on the next meeting. B, the tennis court locks. Now, this one is something that I've mentioned in previous videos, but I think it's worth mentioning again, because now we have a few numbers that we can throw up with the madness of this endeavor to keep the tennis courts locked, so that way only home members can use it. Raquel and the board reviewed a Viper quote for $7,656.52. Now, this is to replace the locks and to make them wireless. I believe David, the VP, had mentioned that maybe we could run the wire out there. He also admitted that that probably won't do much for the cost. But I'm always curious, if we're worried about vandalism and destruction of the tennis courts, how many tennis nets and how many repairs can we do on the court for nearly $7,700? It doesn't make any sense, and it's a Sisyphean task that even when I was on the board, we've always had to contend with. Yet when I look at even nicer neighborhoods or even less nice neighborhoods that don't have locks on their tennis courts, they're fine. I think it would make more sense to spend the $7,700 on repairs as damages occur than this waste on simply locking us out, people who pay our dues, people who live here, and our kids and our neighbors from using this. It's just madness. Unfortunately, the current regime on the board under Mike, they're very punitive, and they don't ever consider making things easier for homeowners. They're always worried about security and making things harder for homeowners. C, the property manager welcoming program and orientation process, waiting on revision from Raquel and Gary Belcher. This, as mentioned earlier, that's pending the new office building opening by the Amenity Center. D, the volunteers to serve on the Architectural Compliance Committee, the ACC. Again, that was discussed earlier by the community manager, and there's a whole video I have on this channel that you can review on how to go through that process and what the ACC is. E, Sterling Bridge fencing repairs. Last I had heard, and my understanding is that there was only a few panels left to be shipped to the HOA, and they were pending install, if not already installed, at the time of this video being posted. F, revisit the enhanced yard sale signs for garage sale on October 1st. There will be notices that go out for that October garage sale. The garage signs, hopefully, are going to be exactly what it is that the HOA has been looking for. Those signs had arrived, and Raquel, the community manager, is supposed to be checking them out and letting the board know if those are going to work as far as the size, the color, those type of things, to ensure that those folks driving by on Palmer and the 290 access road can see that we're having a Harris Branch garage sale. G, Amenity Center rentals, Raquel pending building opening. As stated there, nothing new is going on until that office building gets opened. H, the Samsung cleanup effort. As you can see, we made it big time. Here's a TikTok regards to the Samsung spill that poisoned and killed many, if not all, of the animals in our waterways.
Samsung spilling over 700,000 gallons of acidic wastewater in Texas through their semiconductor facility. It is old news. Reported back in January. And they were actually spilling for months before that. So we've had about 7 months to do something about it. And you know what we did? We gave them an environmental award. Surely it wasn't to the company that not only had this spill, but actually other ones too, that killed virtually all aquatic life there. and that we still have to investigate for long-term impact. Surely that award can't be for how they manage their wastewater. They're doing such a bad job of it. Oh, nope. It was specific to how they manage their wastewater. The turned a creek the shade of orange Gatorade. Yet, Abbott, who appoints the Commission on Environmental Quality that's supposed to regulate this and that gave this award, never mentioned it. He did the opposite, saying, we're gonna regulate you less. He's given them billions of our tax dollars and is trying to get even more from the federal government through the CHIPS Act. It's old news, but under Abbott, it's hidden news.
Unfortunately, Gary Belcher is very hard riding for Samsung. He thinks that what they're doing is enough and wonderful. They are creating a Glen for monarch butterflies. However, the board didn't really press Samsung in regards to what precautions they're taking to ensure this never happens again. Will be interesting to see what they do. However, I'm never a big fan of a large corporation that makes billions of dollars a year turning around and putting up a little kiosk and maybe doing a couple $100,000 in work on our creeks when they really should be pouring probably millions into what they did to our community. Movie nights at the pool, that's scheduled for August 27th. That, according to Town Square, already occurred. I believe they watched The Bad Guys, so you can always find out what the movie will be and the time and date if you are on Town Square. In announcements, you can see the video in announcements. Be sure to check there if you're interested in participating at movie nights at the pool. J streetlight repairs, those should be almost all done, if not already done. This is an ongoing process and will probably be kept on old business or posted on these agendas probably once a year to round up any of the street lamps that are out. Okay, social media. This is still pending. Vanessa and Raquel, as well as David, are working on that. As I mentioned, it will most likely be a Town Square type website. Elections. According to Raquel, currently there have only been 2 submissions for candidacy. Yours truly has submitted his candidacy. I'll post my qualifications in the comment section of the video below in case you're interested. Please, please, please consider voting for me. I must impress on you that once this election begins, it is crucial to realize that it is not necessary for you to give your proxy vote to the president. The verbiage that comes out makes it sound as if that is the only option. You are welcome to give your proxy vote to anybody. At least that was the information that was provided to me when I questioned the proxy vote process and where it was in our CC&Rs, because wink, wink, it's not there. I don't know where the board came up with this idea that proxy votes can be provided to any member or even the president. The nice thing about the election is it will be held on Election Buddy, so it is digital. I will make a whole video on this once the election begins. Please be sure to do digitally, because last time they tried to shorten the election period so that way it made it really hard for votes to get in if they were mailed. So digital is the way to go. Like I said, there's only 2 people who so far submitted. There may be more by the time this video's up. I'll know and report on that after the next month's meeting. The current 2 positions that are up are Gary Belcher, who is the current secretary for the Residential HOA Board, as well as the Master HOA Board, and David Alley, who is the vice president for the HOA Residential Board and is a member on the Master HOA Board. So hopefully we'll see both of them replaced. I highly encourage all of you to vote and ensure that we see some change on the board, because things have been stagnant with those 2 for quite a while. M, the replacement plan for the lace bark elm trees that are removed. So they are in phase 2, and they were thinking about doing the west side of Harris Branch and tying into the irrigation system. They were planning to do 30-gallon trees, 15 total. The trees they were looking into included Monterey oak, red oak, and cedar elm. The cost of that is looking to be $24,000. This is something I think is extremely valuable to the neighborhood and should be done. My understanding is that that has been offered but not accepted as of yet. In violation landscaping cures, including xeriscaping, this is quite an odd update. I know I made a video on the madness that the HOA was engaging in, going after homeowners that had dead grass during a historic drought and heat wave. Unfortunately, Raquel didn't mention a single thing about the amount of notices that they recalled or the apology letters that they send out to homeowners. She didn't mention anything about the updated notice that I had created for the board that would help homeowners remedy this without wasting money on turf grass and immense amounts of water to keep it alive. So, that being said, what they did cover is a section of area that the HOA is responsible for on Winterbourne and Farmhaven, and they had looked at a proposal for mulching the entire area for nearly $5,200 or xeriscaping it. Luckily, and this is a big win in my opinion, the board decided to go with the xeriscaping, which is including multiple plants as well as rocks to ensure the reduction of erosion. These plants that they picked, or at least in the proposal from some scapes, are drought tolerant and water wise as well as native. So I think that's a great move on their part to approve that. I do agree with Gary Belcher when he says the HOA should lead by example on that. So hopefully this move will help encourage other homeowners to take a look at their turf grass and say, you know what, I'm tired of dealing with this. Let's move on to something more sustainable. Oh, pool hours extension 2023. Now, this has been a point of contention for a long time. When I was on the board and up to this date, the older board members always stated that the lifeguards were necessary because of the vandalism that occurred at the pool. However, because of the pressure from you guys, the homeowners saying, hey, we want better hours, and if you're not going to pay for lifeguards to be available at that time, why aren't we looking into swim at your own risk? Now, the swim at your own risk becomes an issue depending on the classification of the pool per city and state guidelines. According to Raquel, she believes that our pool is a Class C. So it is likely that once she completely confirms this and goes over it with probably our HOA attorney, that our pool will be then made into a swim at your own risk pool. That, I think, is a great idea, especially because many of us work different hours. Many of us have random periods of the day, and with the summers of kids being out at different times, it just makes things much easier if it's a swim at your own risk. Additionally, there was discussion around the pool, and I don't see it here on the meeting minutes. It probably fell under new business, about the fence. Issue with the fence around the pool is that it's not very well built, and so there's issues with it being broken from wind damage or just individuals rocking on it. So the board reviewed proposals of either ripping it out completely and putting in a more sturdy fence or reinforcing the fence with plants that are unpleasant to try and go through. So in a big win, in my opinion, for homeowners in the HOA, they approved installing thorny rose bushes, spiky cacti, things of that nature to help reduce any sort of vandalism to the fence that's been installed and help secure the pool from folks who are not members of the community hopping that fence and then swimming in the pool. An additional piece in new business there, they talked about GTM lighting and electric. There are 3 different areas at the pool that they were having issues with lighting. That will be something that we'll have more details on come next meeting once they get quotes and provide those locations that they're having issues with. It's unclear if those are areas that will run lights all night long. I know when I was on the board, I had suggested, at least even for the new office building, that all the lights be only motion sensor because security is much easier to address when your lights only turn on due to motion. If your lights are running all night and someone's breaking in, it's hard for you to see from a distance that there's an issue. But if your lights are motion detector only and it's out in a dark field and you drive by or you pull up to the house and there's lights on, that tells you that something's happening. Unfortunately, my plea for the reduction in light pollution as well as the cost of electricity went on deaf ears, and the president, Mike McLaughlin, VP David Alley, and current secretary Gary Belcher went ahead with the all-night long running lights. So if you drive by the office building, you will see lights on all the time, and you will never know if there's an issue going on there due to the fact that the lights there aren't motion sensor. Something else that's coming up in the new business is the budget that is currently being worked on by Raquel. That will be gone over by the board and will be presented once they have completed it. I suspect we'll hear more on that next meeting. And before they went to the executive session, they did mention that next month is a community meeting. Now, community meetings are meetings where they encourage neighbors to show up in person. You don't have to. I highly recommend just using Zoom. Save yourself the gas, save yourself the time. But if you want to show up in person, there will be an update coming from Raquel and Goodwin on the location of where the community meeting will be happening. As what occurred previously, I suspect it will be at the Goodwin offices, but I'm not entirely sure. I certainly know it will not be at the elementary school that we once used to use, and it will not be at the new office building as the permits for occupancy are still pending. All right. As always, hopefully this was helpful for you and your family. If you have any questions or concerns, put them in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you are always up to date with what's going on in the neighborhood. And with that being said, y'all take care and stay safe out there. Until next time, bye.